Piercings and tattoos and dealing with family and parents. Coming up next on New to Piercing, episode number 16. For those that are new to the channel, welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hope you find it helpful and useful, but you may not know who I am if you haven't been paying attention. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing studio located right here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. This topic came from one of our viewers, Sarah, and I'm going to probably damage your last name, Fernau. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at names. But what she asked was, I was wondering if you would consider making a video on dealing with parents and family when it comes to piercings and tattoos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through some of this as I see it. It's mainly going to be focused on piercing. We may do a Q&A on this in the future where we can get the guys in and talk about the tattoo side of it. First thing I want to talk about is understanding and kind of figuring out where your parents and family are coming from, especially if they're older. Why do they have this pre-existing prejudice and concerns about you getting pierced? The reason why, one of the main ones, is up until recently, when you saw somebody who was heavily modified, either tattooed or pierced, they were usually in like programming, etc., they were depicted as criminals, drug addicts, losers, basically, people who are on the edges or fringes of society. They were considered antisocial. And that's kind of what they're looking at and going, oh, I don't want my son or daughter to be that. And that's part of the problem. The next thing is that they fear that these piercings, or tattoos in that case, are going to affect your ability to be employed, because they've already experienced probably at some time in their life somebody's getting fired or not allowed to have jewelry at home, at work or what have you, or you having problems interacting with other people socially because people have this prejudice towards modified people. This is a concern that I think mainly comes from people that just haven't been exposed to it as much. And don't really understand it. But it also goes back to how the media used to portray people who are pierced and tattooed and modified. The other thing is they often think that you wanting this particular piercing or tattoo, I guess, is a passing phase. And you're going to forget about this just like that pony thing back when you were 8. I don't know why people think that it's just a fad or a fancy. Most people who want to get a piercing, there's definitely something rooted. Maybe they don't understand why, but it's definitely something that's in them that they're eventually going to get that done one way or another. Maybe not that one, but maybe a different one. But piercing, tattooing, etc. is going to be a part of their life. Next thing is, it's your body, and they should find it important, as somebody who loves and cares for you, that you're able to express it in any way, shape, or form as you wish. This is piercings, tattoos, etc. Body modifications are a form of self-expression, and that's important, especially during those development years. The next thing is reminding them that you are the same person you were before you got a piercing or a tattoo or a body modification of some type, and that's not going to change. You're still the same person. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is slightly how you look. Another thing is, regardless of your cultural background, there is some history of modification in that culture. Most of the planet, most indigenous people, ancient people, tribal people, whatever you want to call them, have gotten some type of modification, usually to represent their entry into adulthood. Now, this is one of my favorites. I used to use on my mom every time I'd come home with a new tattoo. It could have been a lot worse. I would make up this, it was an ongoing joke I had with her that I was hanging out and I'd name like 3 or 4 friends she did not like. The people that may have been the reason why I had to call her from jail a couple times. Anyway, and I would go, yeah, we were hanging out. We decided that we were going to go rob this gas station, and then we were going to go score some heroin because none of us had ever tried it. And we were on our way to do that, and I went by a tattoo and piercing shop, and I went, hey, Mom says I never think things through. Maybe I should get a tattoo or a piercing. That's probably going to be a lot better than a criminal record and heroin addiction. And she'd laugh about it and then tell me never to do it again. It really is something. I mean, because if there's somebody that has negativity towards body modification in the first place, they're generally going to think that it's the worst thing you could possibly do, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is I can guarantee you there's a lot worse things you can do to destroy and impede your ability to be to have a good life. The reality is I've had plenty of friends throughout the years with bad ideas and bad motivation, and they screwed their life up pretty well. So I can tell you this much. None of them screwed it up by getting pierced or tattooed. The next thing is that tattoos, piercings, body modifications, maybe some of the extreme ones it's kind of iffy, but are not self-harm. They are not mutilation. And that's kind of this thing. I don't know how many times I've had somebody say, yeah, I went home to mom or dad, and they went, oh my God, you're so beautiful, and why would you ruin it with that? And that partly comes down to their idea of what beauty is, and that's a whole nother topic in itself. And that's established culturally by their generation in most cases. So advertising. Yeah. Anyway, it's been proven that time and time again that well-developed, well-adjusted people get modified all the time. It has nothing to do with self-harm. It has nothing to do with mutilation. I'm sure there's probably some cases out there where that may be the case, but for the most part, it is not. It tends to be more about self-expression, fashion, and how you want to be perceived in the world. The next thing is do your research on your piercing beforehand. So then when they make some snide comment, you have something to come back that's factual. That definitely this is the way, this is why this is done. It's not common for this to happen or that happening. I think a lot of them are like, oh, you're gonna have like all kinds of problems with it and everything else. If you show them that you've taken the time and took on the responsibility to know what your commitment's going to be when you get this piercing, it kind of softens some of those edges and arguments against. The next one is, if you're an adult, they don't need to know all the piercings you get done. If you having a piercing is going to be a huge problem, there's a couple little options you can do. One of those is retainers. The other one is getting pierced in areas of the body where you normally don't reveal to family members. I guess it depends on your family, but swimming maybe. But for the most part, you can get your navel pierced and they would never know it. Oftentimes, people get ear piercings done that are easy to cover up with hair. You can get your septum done, use a circular barbell, flip it up. When you're around them, they don't need to know you have it. If that's what it comes down to, sometimes it's just easier. It's kind of like not arguing about politics at Thanksgiving, regardless of what your uncle said. When approaching parents for consent, because I have a feeling that this may be part of it for this particular person, and I'll probably, I don't know if I'll do a full video on this, but it's kind of a subject that comes up often. The first thing I'm going to tell you is, regardless how conservative your parents may be or what have you, and this is a situation where you're a minor and you want to get pierced, and you need that parental consent. You should not go and find some place that's going to do it without parental consent, because chances are they aren't doing much of what they should be doing in the first place. And also, you shouldn't be self-piercing yourself with junky crap that you bought off the internet. Anyway, the first thing is, no matter how conservative or anti-piercing, anti-tattooing your parents may seem, you never know until you actually ask them whether or not they're okay or not okay. I don't know how many times I've had somebody come in who was like 17 years old, wanted her navel pierced or their navel pierced, and they were just like, I was just shocked that my dad said it was okay. And all they had to do was ask. The next thing is, it's important to understand, maybe to a degree, your motivation about getting the piercing done and being able to explain that to them clearly. Don't just, I think a lot of parents think, well, it's because that person, that friend of theirs I don't like, has it done, so now they want it done too. That's not always the case. Maybe that influence of that person has made you go, oh, I'd like to get a nostril piercing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be like them. Tell them what your motivation is behind this. If you think it looks cute, that's fine. If you think it's like, I just want to show my control over my body and expression and etc. Do that, and that's going to make you seem more like an adult and less like somebody who just does things on whims. Do your research. I know this is the second time I brought up research. Know your facts about that particular piercing. Write out a pros and cons. Basically, write it out and present it to them. Here's the pros of this piercing, and here's the cons of this. Even do one for pros and cons of getting pierced. Basically, have that, show them you're putting in that work and that commitment and that you can handle having this piercing. Listen to your parents' concerns about the piercing and research that particular issue. A lot of times, I think that the reason why parents don't want to have your kid do something is because they know how bad things could turn out, and doing that research and going, hey, this is why this doesn't happen anymore, or we have better jewelry now, or I'm not going to have this problem with this, or maybe you had an allergic reaction to jewelry when you were a child. And now you can go, well, they have this jewelry, and this is what I need to get. So listen to them. Find out what their concerns are. Also, kind of, it might be employment. So talk to your employer. Talk to various different places. Or point out every time you go to Target or some type of grocery store, see, she had her nostril pierced. Wasn't it cute? The cashier. Or he had his septum pierced. Isn't that cool? Lastly, I'm going to cover this. Anybody who is over a certain age has experienced somebody that's had terrible luck with piercings. Either they didn't take care of them, they went to the wrong place, they had allergic reactions, their body just said, I don't want this. And that's the first thing that your parents' mind usually goes to when they're thinking about you getting this done. They don't want you to end up getting a navel piercing and then having the giant scar that their best friend has on their navel. So this is why researching your piercer, getting to know them, knowing how they do business, how reputable they are, reviews, etc., it can play an important part in having them consent to letting you get pierced. Well, what is your experience with dealing with family and friends and etc. and piercings? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear some of the stories about that, and share with the general community. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I would love to see you for your piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.